What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer, and we just got a pretty big bombshell when it comes to the fate of Overwatch 2's PvE. Just a short while ago, Kotaku published this article featuring insider information from ex-Overwatch developers detailing the incredibly troublesome development of Overwatch 2's PvE and some pretty grim insight into the future of this side of Overwatch. So in this video, I'll be quickly just sort of scanning through this article, reading through the most important portions, and giving my own thoughts about the information revealed here and what it could mean for us as players going forward. So, first off, in the last few months, Overwatch 2 fans have grown increasingly worried about the state of the hero shooter's story missions. These missions were a pillar of the sequel's initial pitch at BlizzCon 2019, the shiny new thing that merited making a new game instead of patching the original one like most live service projects. But since Overwatch 2's October 2022 launch, only one set of missions have been released in August 2023. Currently, there is no release window for more. For Blizzard, the January Xbox layoffs primarily affected developers working on these missions. What's more, recent changes to Overwatch 2's menus suggest story missions are, at the very least, being deprioritized. Now, in case you were unaware, what they're referring to here in this last sentence is actually the fact that the PvE missions tab, which was originally one of the main big cards you could select here on the different play modes within Overwatch itself, has been relegated to the side, one of the smaller cards to select, having been replaced with Hero Mastery with the release of Hero Mastery Gauntlet. So yeah, this definitely signifies Blizzard sort of pushing the PvE missions to the side, at least for the time being. Getting back to the article though, Kotaku chatted with several ex-Blizzard employees, all of whom spoke on condition of anonymity for fear of retribution, about the past, present, and future of Overwatch 2's campaign missions. According to a former developer, Blizzard's plan was to release Overwatch 2's campaign in multiple content drops over several years. But the project had been tied up in pipeline issues dating back more than 5 years. The team was told the intent was to drop 3 missions around every 18 months, and they added that while the entire campaign may not be ready to ship yet, every mission is reportedly in some degree of completion within Blizzard. According to that same source, those levels range from fully playable to still in concept. Now, I'm going to stop right here because first and foremost, every 18 months, their plan was to release 3 missions, presumably 3 missions on the same scale as the invasion missions we got back in August. Every 18 months, every year and a half, we were going to get 3 more of those missions. This was their original plan before the Microsoft layoffs and all the other trouble they ran into with the launch of Overwatch 2. Every 18 months, if they even were to hold to that same track record now, we wouldn't be seeing the next PvE missions release until February of 2025. Nearly a year away from right now, the time I'm making this video. That was their original plan? I don't know about you all, but that release frequency is way too slow for what I think Blizzard would need to do in order to make PvE actually feel relevant. But moving on, work on the campaign missions was apparently held up in pursuit of a nebulous thing called Blizzard quality, a term used to describe a standard the company aspires to. According to one source, this became a crutch that was frequently used to avoid making calls that would move the development of story missions forward. Blizzard quality is a justification to essentially piss about forever and ever, redoing the same work over and over. Some executive goes, but is it Blizzard quality? It's always leadership or game directors deciding they need to spend the extra time. So honestly, if they could have just made any kind of decisions, the game would have shipped years ago. Oof. So yeah, it seems like even the ex-Overwatch developers themselves are, again, blaming that upper management and the leadership and even game directors here as being the ones who are ultimately sabotaging the PvE's actual development with this idea that it had to reach and maintain Blizzard quality, when Blizzard quality itself was apparently a nebulous term that didn't really have much meaning. Another source said this reliance on Blizzard quality may have contributed to frequent iterations on the original concept, but that wasn't the only issue the team faced while trying to work on Overwatch 2's story missions. Overwatch 2's PvP gameplay just turned out to be very difficult to adapt for PvE, mostly because of how differentiated and PvP oriented the hero kits are. Sources described internal sentiment around the story missions as never outright negative, but increasingly pessimistic. One source said that as concerns grew about how they were shaping up, leadership, including director Aaron Keller and executive director Jared Ness, would try to rally the team and in some cases avoid questions entirely. You had designers, programmers, artists, QA, all disciplines on the team constantly making suggestions and ideas to improve or trying to do the best we could. It was all either shot down by a few gatekeepers or just there was no point, there was no time. Almost every single team town hall there were questions about what do we do if it doesn't succeed? I don't feel confident that it will perform well. What are we going to do about players being disappointed? It was met with either don't worry about it, it'll be fine, we have so much confidence in it, trust us. Sources say that while Overwatch 2 is pitched to fans as a fresh start with new ideas and new content, the game's competitive suite was always the priority, and the story missions suffered because of it. This lines up with what Blizzard had openly stated, like Keller's May 2023 announcement that the team was gutting its planned PvE modes to prioritize the live game. But the decision to cancel Hero Mode was reportedly made as late in the development process as December 2022, 2 months after the game's early access launch, and 6 months before the company made the official announcement. I will just say real quickly here, this does seem to check out from a lot of the stuff I'm aware of in terms of the development process for the PvE. Them scrapping the hero mission modes and all that did seem to be a very, very last minute decision that hadn't even been fully settled on until after the PvP portion of Overwatch 2 had actually launched. So it's good to hear this sort of reiterated here, given that it lines up with other stuff we had sort of heard about this whole situation. PvP was understood to be the core of the game's success. Everybody still cared a lot about PvE though, and that includes team leadership. According to one source, the argument was made internally that the Overwatch 2 team would need to double in size to give both PvP and PvE the resources Blizzard believed they needed, but there was dissent on that front. They used to say all the time that we would essentially need two 400 people teams, one for PvP and one for PvE, to have the personnel needed. I don't think that's true. There were already too many cooks. Interesting bit of sentiment there, the idea that there are too many people working on these projects. That's obviously something we see all the time, not only in video games, but movies, TV shows, any sort of media like that. Having too many people with too much power and having say over how something should be designed or function or release can very frequently end up sabotaging the product itself. And it seems like even the developers for Overwatch 2's PvE were starting to get that sort of sentiment towards the PvE, where it seemed like there were too many people trying to give input at too high of a level, such that nothing ultimately ended up getting produced. And now let's move on to the Xbox layoffs, which spelled trouble for Overwatch 2's campaign. So, has development on the story missions halted? One source said Activision Blizzard wanted the first batch of story missions to do serious numbers to justify completing the campaign. Another said those missions did not do well at all, both financially and in terms of player sentiment. I'm just gonna go ahead and give my own speculative input here. Yeah, I 100% agree. I do not think those first 3 invasion missions did well either financially or in terms of player enjoyment. They were pretty lukewarm on both fronts, I think. If they're gonna make more of that stuff, they just laid off all the people who are working on it. Maybe there's some other way they could do it, but most of the people laid off from the Overwatch team were working on that pillar. This is, of course, in reference to the Microsoft layoffs, which were only a short while ago. The overarching sentiment from the people Kotaku spoke to was that in spite of development issues, everyone on the Overwatch 2 team wanted the story missions and PvE to stand alongside the competitive game. However, it doesn't sound like the higher-ups above them felt the same way. It really doesn't seem like, even from a business perspective, that Activision or Microsoft have any faith in the PvE. And that there is where the article does come to a close. There's just a bit of follow-up mentioning that Kotaku reached out to Blizzard for comment, but didn't get a response back by time of publication, which, is pretty much par for the course with these types of articles. So yeah, overall, a pretty damning look at PvE with insight from actual ex-Overwatch developers who clearly had a lot of frustrations when it comes to PvE and how Blizzard as a company, especially on the management side, were actually handling the development and even release of this side of Overwatch. Despite all this though, I unfortunately have to admit, I don't really find any of this to be that surprising. This basically is all stuff we would have assumed, just given the state of Overwatch 2, especially the PvE at this point. What with the lackluster reception to Invasion back in August, and the way that Blizzard themselves rarely, if ever, even want to acknowledge PvE as being a thing at this point. Yeah, I think one could pretty safely have guessed basically everything that was talked about here in this article. Overall, though, it is a really disappointing look inside of Blizzard here in this article, just talking about how the devs themselves are so dissatisfied with the production and everything. And still, 18 months? Their plan was to release 3 missions every 18 months? It seems like even from the get-go, before all the delays and issues of development, their original game plan for PvE was, not great, I think, to say the least. Yeah, we'll see how this ends up playing out. Again, we still don't know what the actual fate of PvE is at this point. It is still possible we see more campaign missions releasing in the future. There's nothing definitive here saying that it is for sure canceled, but overall, it is not looking good. On that note, though, I would love to hear your thoughts on all this in the comments down below. Does this more or less affirm everything you yourself thought about the development of PvE and what it looked like internally? Or maybe you're really disappointed. Maybe you still had a lot of hope and optimism left, and this article has changed your perspective on things. Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, be sure to subscribe, hit up that bell icon, come follow me on X, and join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any of my future Overwatch 2 news, streams, and other content. And special thanks to my YouTube channel members who help make these videos possible. If you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. And otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.